Hi, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with a Coach. Today we have a question from our friend Optimistic Gamers. He says, "Hey Ramsey, I got a question. How to become a good MMA fighter?" That's a great question, man. You've come to the right place. What does it take to become an MMA fighter? I'm 14, and I do karate, judo, and jiu-jitsu in a country where MMA is practically non-existent. Okay, I can relate to that, and I'll tell you why. Because 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, when I first moved here to China, MMA was non-existent. Nobody did it here. I mean, there were a couple of guys in a couple of places who knew what it was. But by and large, it was non-existent. I opened up the second MMA gym in the entire country of the People's Republic of China, and the first MMA gym in Shanghai, a city with an unofficial population of 29 million, official population, I think back then it was like 23, 24 million people, and 0 MMA gyms. There were a handful of guys doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a couple of blue belts with a gym and a small following. There were a couple of karate clubs, some taekwondo gyms. There was a Muay Thai gym, tiny, with a couple of guys doing that. MMA, nothing. Nothing. And, man, so anytime I met somebody who even knew what MMA was, that was exciting. I remember I was on the subway and I saw this guy wearing a tap-out shirt, a Chinese guy wearing a tap-out shirt. After being here for such a long time trying to explain to people what it was like pulling teeth trying to explain what MMA was, why anybody would do it, why I was interested in it, why I had made a career out of it. Nobody understood that, but then I saw the dude in the tap-out shirt. I ran up to him. I was like, "You know what MMA is?" His eyes opened wide as saucers. "Yeah, you too? Yeah, did we just become best friends, basically?" So that kind of conversation. Experiences like that were few and far between. So what did I do? I opened up my own gym here. Now, I'm not telling you, go open up your own gym in your country. Maybe you will. Maybe you will be the first one to offer mixed martial arts instruction in your country. Cool if you do. But let's answer that question first. How do you become a good MMA fighter? Besides the boring answers, which are true, get out there and train. Train consistently. Training consistently over long periods of time is more important than cramming a bunch of training into small intervals. Aside from that, the most important things for winning MMA fights: athleticism, aggression, and technique. The technique part in a country where MMA is unheard of is the hardest part probably, but you do have access to karate and judo and jiu-jitsu, as you said. That's awesome. MMA is a unique and different sport than all of those. But at the same time, if you have access to the basic fundamental building blocks of MMA technique, if you will, jiu-jitsu, judo, karate, boxing, wrestling, that sort of stuff, kickboxing, Muay Thai, any of that, and you have people who are willing to learn and willing to train with you and willing to push themselves in a different direction and go against the flow of the popular current, you have the opportunity to develop your technique. I just watched the UFC preview of the upcoming fight between Zhang Weili, Chinese MMA champion, the first one, and Joanna Jedrzejczyk, sorry, Polish viewers. I love you guys, and I feel terrible about mispronouncing your language like that. It's a hard name to say for a native English speaker. Anyway, Joanna and Zhang Weili are going to fight, and it's going to be awesome. And a couple of you have asked, what do I think of this? Ooh, let me take a break from answering this question and answer that question. I'm excited. I'm excited because neither of these fighters has faced another fighter like the other in their career, to my knowledge. They are both predominantly strikers. Yes, I know Zhang Weili has experience in jiu-jitsu. moderate experience. She has some experience with wrestling. But she is predominantly a striker. Let's be honest. That is her bread and butter. That is her strength. A powerful striker. Joanna is predominantly a striker as well. I noticed in that UFC preview, it showed almost exclusively training clips of her working on grappling, which was quite interesting. Because I don't think this fight is going to the ground at all. I don't think it's going to involve a lot of clinch work at all. It's either going to be really awesome and really quick, or very drawn out and very compelling, I think. Joanna, man, she is a volume puncher. What was it? Her last fight, she threw something in the range of 300 significant strikes. That means strikes that connected. That's a confusing term that the UFC introduced when they started saying significant strikes. Because if you get hit with 300 significant strikes, and significant means meaningful, to borrow a term from our friend Uncle Chael Sonnen. If you land a meaningful number of strikes in a fight, that does a meaningful amount of damage, a significant amount of damage. If you get hit 300 times, and each of those strikes is significant, you're probably dead, lying on the ground. Anyway, all that means is a strike that connects, is a significant strike, okay? We're not talking about strikes that do a significant amount of damage, or knock back, or knock down. Significant strike in UFC vernacular simply means one that connects. I want to make that clear. Anyway, Joanna is famous for landing huge volumes of significant strikes. And Zhang Weili does a pretty good job at putting people away with a fairly small volume of significant strikes. So, super stoked to see this one. Good luck to both fighters. I'm a big fan of both women. So, back to the question here. How do you become a good MMA fighter? 1, technique. So make sure to get as good at your technique as you can. Go to your judo class. Go to your jiu-jitsu class. Go to your karate class. Make sure to pay attention. Do a little bit extra. One of my favorite grapplers, my favorite competitors in any combat sport, Andre Galvao. Andre Galvao, awesome, awesome athlete. And one thing he does a little bit different than everybody else is he does a little bit extra. Not crazy, like Rocky training montages of work extra, but a little bit extra. After he does all of the consistent work, and it's hard work, and it's serious work, and it's technical work, he does a little bit more, about 10 minutes more by himself, to keep himself sharper. And that's good. So, do a little more. Aggression. You may have heard the term effective aggression or effective aggressiveness. It's one of the parameters by which fights are won. Effective striking, effective grappling, and effective aggression or effective aggressiveness or ring control or cage control, whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing. Often what makes the difference when you have a technical fighter fighting another technical fighter, both fighters are equally skilled, both fighters are good athletes, it's the one who is more aggressive that wins every time. What does that mean? It means the one who pushes the action and does the most to finish the fight. Very simple. Not easy to implement. Simple doesn't mean easy. Please understand that. And then athleticism. The cool thing about that, again, when all other things are even, when you have two evenly technical guys, two equally aggressive guys, and you have one that's just a little bit better of an athlete than the other, that guy wins. You don't need to live in a country where MMA is popular, or even a thing, or even has an established MMA gym or team or any form of competition to become a good athlete. You don't even need a gym to become a good athlete. You don't. Shout out to my friend and my coach and mentor Shane Brenner back in the US. Shane taught me this lesson a long time ago. You don't need a fancy gym to be a great athlete. You need a good work ethic, and you need a good game plan. Shane told me when he was younger, he got into tremendous shape, and the dude he's a tremendous athlete. He is. But when he was younger, he didn't know anything about lifting or fitness or any of the science behind this stuff. What he did know was the movie Rocky. And in the movie Rocky, Rocky did push-ups, and Rocky did sit-ups and pull-ups, and Rocky would run, and he would shadow box. And Shane thought to himself, I can do those things. I want to be tough like Rocky in the movie, so I'm going to do those things. So he ran, and he did push-ups and sit-ups and pull-ups. And he shadow boxed. And something magical happened. He got more athletic. There are a lot of fictitious things in movies, but that's not one of them. You put in the work, you'll get the result. That's a true principle. Which is also why the movie The Karate Kid Part 1, the original, with Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita, will always be superior to the remake with, what's his name, Will Smith's son? I forget. But here's the difference between those two movies and why this applies to work. In the original movie, at the end, Daniel LaRusso wins the karate tournament using this secret, cool karate technique, the crane kick. That he had been practicing throughout the entire movie. Throughout the entire movie, since he met Mr. Miyagi, he saw Mr. Miyagi practicing. He says, what is that? Teach it to me, please. Mr. Miyagi says, you must practice very hard. You've got to do it consistently. And we see this montage throughout the whole movie. Daniel is practicing this kick over and over and over again. He does it hundreds and thousands of times. And then, at the final fight of the tournament, he pulls off the fancy kick and he wins. And that's a true principle. If you put in the work, then you can do the technique. Now, where the new Karate Kid remake movie errs greatly is that it follows the beat of the hero winning the final fight with a fancy technique, a secret technique that he learned. Supposedly, except there was no work involved. There was a scene where he goes up to a mountain and he watches some monks, and one of the monks is charming a snake or something like that. And it is implied that this is the new crane kick, if you will. This is the replacement of the crane kick trope that our hero is going to learn. So he learns to charm a snake up on a mountain. That's it. At the end of the movie, he is in the final fight of the tournament, and he does some crazy kung fu backflip kick on the guy. And he wins. And nowhere in the rest of the movie did we see him practice this, not once. Not once, and that is not a true principle, that's a lie. You are never going to be able to pull some magic out of your butt that is not in your butt in the first place, that is not in your muscle memory in the first place. So adhere to true principles of training. Put in the work and get the result. You reap what you sow. So focus on those three things right now. Technique. You're going to school for that right now. Now you have to modify it. Obviously. But pay attention right now. Get as good in judo and karate and jiu-jitsu as you can. See if you can find someone to train boxing with. See if you can get some of your training partners together to practice. Do some MMA sparring, some light contact MMA sparring. See how that works out. Become the ringleader for this desire of yours to become an MMA fighter. Talk about this with other people. Because when you talk about your dreams and your ambitions with other people, eventually you are going to run into somebody else who shares your dreams and ambitions. I'm sometimes asked by people, how do you get a successful YouTube channel? I've answered this question before. A lot of it has to do with luck, whatever. But I will say something I haven't said before, which is put yourself out there. The real you. Put the real you out there. again and again and again, and have a conversation about what you are passionate about over and over and over again through your YouTube channel. And then eventually, do you know what's going to happen? Some other psychopaths just like you, some other crazy nuts just like you, who share that same vision, that same ambition that you do, are going to pay attention. They're going to say, hey, what this guy says resonates with me. And maybe that's a small following, maybe it's a huge one, but they are out there. They are out there. You're not alone, man. You're not the only one. As much as it might feel like it. I know that feeling. Man, 10 years ago, the MMA scene was so different. It was unimaginable that there would be a UFC champion from China back then. It was unimaginable. Let alone that the sport of MMA would be where it is right now, in China. But it all started with a simple ambition. Hey, there's nothing here, nobody here doing what I want to do, so I have to be the one to do what I want to do. I have to be the one to make it happen. And maybe that's you in your country. But have that conversation again and again and again and again, and eventually other people will be talking back to you. That's a good thing. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train.